Ooh, what up chaps, I'm Magical Mike, and this is the Guardian, I'm going to call this the Pillar build. I mean, it's practically the same as the old Anchor build that I think Strife came up with, but I'm just going to go through it because people have been asking me for my build, and there you go. I should start off by saying, this isn't a DPS build, and because of that, a lot of people will be like, well, it's not optimal, and yeah, I absolutely understand that. If you want to go DPS, this isn't the build for you, but this is mainly for being the guy that survives and holds the team together. It's pug friendly. If you're in an organised team, you can just go full berserker and do all that stuff, but this is pug friendly and will help you keep the rest of the team together and rally them around you and all that sort of stuff. You've got a lot of tools to be able to survive and still deal a decent-ish amount of damage. So let's go over the traits first. Yeah, why not? So as I said, it's a defensive build, so we've gone 0, 0, 30, 30, 10. These are somewhat interchangeable, but this is essentially what I've got right now. So 30 in Valor will give you toughness, which is good for survivability, obviously. Also gives you crit damage though, which is, you could say that's kind of strange. Honor will give you more vitality and some healing power, so you can see my health is kind of low, but it's boosted by that extra vitality there. And I also get some boon duration and some virtue recharge rate, which is handy because you do use your virtues quite often. So let's go through each and every trait and why I've picked it. 5 points in Valor gives you Valorous Defense, which just gives you a free Aegis at 50% health, which is always nice. We've got Retributive Armor, precision based on your toughness. So that will give you 5% of your toughness into precision, which gives you more crit chance, which adds on to the crit damage. This is particularly handy because we're using Knight's armor, and that gives you a lot of toughness, therefore a lot of crit chance, a lot of precision, all that stuff. I wouldn't change this particular trait, but you could do. Virtue of Courage is recharged when you rally. Again, just kinda handy. That is your Aegis, so you get a free Aegis when you rally up, which is, it gives you a little bit extra time to get used to the situation where you've just been rallied at. 20 points in, we've got Purity, which gives you 1 condition removed every 10 seconds. This trait is interchangeable for Focused Mind. If you particularly want more crit chance, if you're solo, if you haven't got warriors or people giving you fury, you could use this. It's not particularly handy, but it will give you more crit chance if you swap out one of your skills, or more of them, for things like Smite Condition, which will give you about a 25% uptime on Fury, which isn't terrible, but Purity's pretty handy too. Might of the Protector will give you might when you block attacks, and because you've got a ton of Aegis, you're going to be blocking attacks quite often. If you use different weapons, you'll be also blocking attacks quite often, so that's just a nice minor trait. And Altruistic Healing. This is incredible. This is the thing that will keep you alive through the most ridiculous situations, and I'll have some footage showing this after I've gone through the build, and I'll try and explain why it's so good, and you'll be able to see why it's so good. So in Honor, we've got Vigorous Precision, which gives you Vigor when you do crits. That gives you 5.5 seconds of Vigor in this build on a 5-second recharge, which basically means as long as you crit in those 5 seconds-ish, you're going to have round about, I'm going to guess at like a 90% uptime on Vigor, which gives you a ton more dodges, and this synergizes well with Selfless Daring. The end of your dodge roll heals nearby allies. Pretty handy, the healing's not bad either, 400 health, and because you'll be dodging all the time, that also heals you too. You'll be dodging so much that you'll get heals, and you'll be evading damage, and you'll be staying alive longer. Handy. 10 points in, we've got Superior Aria, which reduces the recharge on shouts. You can see I'm using 2 shouts. You can also use Save Yourselves if you want all these boons. You can also use Retreat if you want to move around the map more, or if it's just what you want to do. Pretty handy. Also, your shouts are going to act as condition removal. We've got Pure Voice in here. Each one will remove a condition and change it to a boon. Very, very powerful stuff. This used to be bugged. Apparently it gave more than 1 condition into boons, but now it doesn't, so good, I suppose. 20 points into Honor, we've got Writ of Persistence, which makes your symbols last longer. This makes my hammer auto-attack chain protection last a long time, and because that symbol also does damage, it increases your DPS. Now if you're not using a hammer, you can go with two-handed mastery if you want to use the greatsword instead, and particularly if you're using a greatsword staff combination, you want to do this trait because your symbols aren't really all that prominent. If you're using a sword, you want to go with empowering might because that will give you a lot of might. Well, not a lot, but enough. Handy DPS boosts. But that's why we're using symbols last longer. In Writ of Persistence here, gives you more damage, gives you more protection uptime, gives you more healing through altruistic healing, and keeps everybody alive longer. You also deal more damage when your endurance isn't full, and because you'll be dodging so much, that means you'll pretty much always have that 10% damage increase. The virtues, we've got Inspired Virtue. This is the mainstay of any Guardian build. If you haven't got 5 points into virtues, then you're probably playing Guardian wrong. So, Virtue of Justice will give 3 stacks of might to everybody around you. Resolve will give you some regen, and obviously the base heal. And Virtue of Courage gives you the protection, which is always kinda handy, but considering we're using a hammer, you can have protection uptime all the time anyway. But what this 5 points also allows you to do is heal yourself through spamming your virtues. Because all these boons come out, that synergizes with altruistic healing and gives you a huge boon, heal, spike, thing. And of course if you need more healing, you can spam all 3 of your virtues in a panic, hit your renewed focus which recharges them all, make sure your Aegis gets removed again, and then spam them all again. Easy peasy. Lots of healing too, it's always good. The trait we put in the 10 points, you can swap this out for whatever you like. I put Master of Consecrations in here, because in fractals, in team situations, a lot of the time you're gonna be expected to use Wall of Reflection. This gives it an extra 2 seconds on its duration, and puts the recharge down quite a bit too, I think from 40 seconds? I'm not entirely sure on that, I'm not going to mess about with it. But that reflects projectiles and it is incredibly handy. Like, unbelievably good. In certain situations, in the Dredge Fractal in particular, this will also help with Sanctuary, and that's kinda handy, although isn't that prominent, and also with Hallowed Ground you're not going to be using that too often either. Right now I've got Purging Flames in here, which also synergizes quite well with a hammer. It's a fire combo field, which means your hammer 2 skill will give might to everybody. Again, more boons, more healing, more damage. All good. It also removes conditions, which is very, very good, and recently also got buffed to give you condition duration reduction. So this is a huge thing in helping conditions get off your team. You can also swap this out for spirit weapons lasting longer if you want the shield to last longer. In some situations you actually want the shield of the Avenger. The Dredge Fractal again is another good example of that, and you'll see it in a bit. And the final thing you can swap this out for is Vengeful, which is okay. I guess if you're using the hammer, then you can put that on. I'm reluctant to say it's too good because, while Retaliation's nice, you've got too many other things. Obviously if you're not running a consecration at all, if you're just going 3 shouts, then go ahead by all means put Vengeful on, and you'll be able to have more retaliation going out. So the skills that we've got for this build, I'll let you look at my character here. There we go. Actually, you can look at the stats, go ahead. The skills, your heal shelter is just fantastic. It is the one that you're going to be using most of the time. It gives you 2 seconds of blocking. This thing cannot be interrupted unless you walk into something like a line of warding. An unblockable skill, obviously, will interrupt this if it has an interrupt on it. But it gives you enough healing. 4000 isn't that great, but considering that you've got altruistic healing as well and all these boons coming out, you shouldn't need to use shelter all that often unless you've made a mistake, or unless you've pulled 1000 dredge. If you want to swap this out, you can use Signet of Resolve. The condition removal is kinda nice, and it doubles your healing capacity to 8000. Very powerful skill. I think in the footage I might actually be using Signet of Resolve, and that was a mistake. You want to use Signet of Resolve if you don't ever need an emergency heal. If you just want to take it easy and slow, you can by all means go ahead and use this, and you won't actually need to use it all that often. It also deals with conditions quite well, but considering the amount of condition removal we've got, it's not that big of a deal. So shelter, you want to keep that in. Stand your ground is probably the best stun breaker that you've got. You've got other things like, geez, I know Hallowed Ground isn't a stun break, but you can use it as stability. You can use Contemplation as Purity as a stun breaker, Judge's Intervention. Merciful isn't a stun breaker, but it will teleport you, and it is instant, so it almost is, but it's not. Save yourselves as well, but stand your ground. Retaliation, who cares, but the stability is the most important thing. If you're in something like the Harpy Fractal, you want to have stand your ground on your bar, but to be honest, I keep this on my bar all the time, forever. This never ever gets changed. It's too useful to not use it. Ideally, you'll hope that the rest of your team can react properly, but you can also use this as a preemptive stun breaker for people. So if you see the Harpy electric thing coming at you, then you can use this if there's no stability on the group and save everybody from getting knocked off the cliffs. Or you can just use it as a stun breaker. In very rare circumstances, I will use it as a condition removal. If I have 20 stacks of bleed on me, I'm about to die and I've got nothing left. But that doesn't happen all that often. Hold the Line is the second shout that I use. Obviously converts a condition to a boon, gives you some regen and protection. Protection's nice for the people who aren't stacking up on you, and it can be handy. This is mostly my condition removal though, and I will use it just at random sometimes if I need some quick bit of healing. If I see that somebody else has a condition on them that I need to remove, this is the skill that I use. And Purging Flames, as I said, I use this as a fire field for some might for people to stack in. It's also a condition remover, and it just does some burning, so it's always good. You can swap this. This one's the one that I swap out often. I'll use Retreat just to move around quite quickly. Sometimes I'll use Save Yourselves if I just want to heal myself quite a lot, because a lot of boons come out of this. I will also use Smite Condition sometimes. This is just an extra little damage boost. And if I've swapped in that trait that gives me Fury, I'll use the Smite Condition. I'll often swap it out for Shield of the Avenger. That's particularly good. And Wall of Reflection, as I've said. None of these signets are particularly good, but in the Grawl Fractal, where you've got to CC the Grawl running at the Shaman to knock the guys off the cliff, I will often swap these skills out for things like Stand Your Ground always stays there, but these signets are actually particularly useful. The Knockdown is kinda nice, and the Immobilize is also kinda nice, because the Guardian, I don't have much CC in here, so granted Sanctuary is, but you get more use out of things like Signet of Wrath and Bane Signet. So that's when those signets come into use. Again, not very often. And your elite, you can use Tome of Courage in specific situations. It's very hard to say when. The only situation that I ever use this is if people don't have enough agony resistance in the Jade Fractal and they specifically ask me to use this. That is the only time I will do it. For the rest of the time you want to use Renewed Focus, because that 2-second invulnerability is far too powerful to pass up, and it recharges your virtues, so you get all these boons and everything, and you get all the heals out of it as well. And an extra Aegis. All very good. So let's go over the armour that I'm using. It's all knights. All this stuff came from Sorrow's Embrace, which is why it has this Rune of the Forge on it. It just so happens that the Rune of the Forge gives you extra protection duration, which is nice for the hammer, because I'm spamming protection on people. You could change this for whatever the hell you like, to be honest. It's just pure coincidence that I've got these here. You could put in, if you want the more DPS, you can change this stuff for Berserker gear if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it, because the whole point of the build is to try and stay alive longer than other people. But you could do that, and you could also put the runes of the... It's the one that gives you 10% extra damage when you're above 90% health. The runes of the Scholar, there we go, jeez. You can put those runes in if you want to. You want Berserker weapons as well, so I've got the Juggernaut here with my Berserker stats on it. Yes, it has a major Sigil of Fire on it. To be honest, I haven't figured out what I really want there. Maybe Perception might be nice, because I've only got 37% chance to crit, but I find that that's enough to keep my Vigour up, which is all I really need. I don't know, maybe Bloodlust, maybe Perception. Obviously you want a Superior Sigil in there. You want to do that. I have a Staff on my offhand, because if we look at the Staff skills, this skill in particular, Empower, gives you a ton of healing. This thing is like having a second heal. It is so powerful, and it will keep you alive through ridiculous situations. You also have the symbol of swiftness. If you put that on yourself, if you're in melee, this will heal you through altruistic healing, and it will do the damage as well. It ticks every second, so you get quite a lot of healing out of that. You have the line of warding. That's handy in specific situations when you want to do line of sight pulls, as well as the ring of warding on the hammer. Zealot's Embrace, kinda handy again for things like that. And that's it, you got the healing on Orb of Light as well. So the only reason I have healing power on this is because I only ever swap to my staff if I specifically need the healing. And the Major Sigil of Energy gives me that extra dodge as well. Superior Sigil would be better, but I'm too cheap to have done that. Underwater weapons don't matter, and now we'll look at the rings and the jewellery and stuff like that. This is a bit of a mishmash here. I've got 2 Berserker things, 3 Berserker things, so all these three ascended things are Berserker. Exotic is just fine, go ahead and do that. I have 2 Cavalier rings here, because I wanted to keep the toughness and the crit damage quite high, and I also have a Knight's Necklace. My reasoning for this is because I wanted to keep my toughness just above 2000. I don't know why, it's just an arbitrary number, and it's just above 2000 there, without sacrificing too much in the way of damage. Obviously we've got not that much power, but it still does quite a lot of attack. A decent crit chance, you're going to have about 50-ish% if you've got Fury on, tons of armour, and that's it. Yeah, you also have your crit damage. My crit damage is 65%, that's kinda high. It's not bad at all. A few things I should talk about are weapons. This build really plays to anything you want to do. If you want to use your hammer, I do, obviously, because I got a legendary, so I want to actually use it, then go ahead. But you can also use... where is it? The greatsword's not bad. My sigils are all wonky and out of whack here. You want berserker weapons just to make up for the lack of damage that you're doing. And yeah, you can use the greatsword. If you use the greatsword, you want to change this trait here. Maybe not purity. Maybe purity. Actually, no. You want to change this trait for two-handed mastery. You could also use Writ of the Merciful if you want, but the healing is so minor that it's not worth it. If you need some range, swap the staff for your scepter. Again, you should probably not use power, toughness, vitality one, but you wanna definitely use that. In specific situations, the shield isn't bad if you need a pushback, if you need some CC, like in the Grawl Fractal, or if you need projectile blocking, the shield isn't bad, but most of the time you want to use the focus, because skill 5 on the focus is far too good to be passing up. Also, if you don't want to use two-handed weapons, I would suggest using a sword, because the sword does more damage, gives you more blocks, blinds, overall it's quite good, and couple that with a focus, and that's it. So, I've babbled on for far too long now. I think it's about time that I showed you, with the magic of editing, some examples of fractals, quite high level stuff. I think it's in the high 30s, and you can also use this build for PvP, although it's not that good. I'll try and show you some PvP footage of it as well. So, we'll edit that in. With the magic of editing. Oh yeah, some jump cuts and everything. So, as I said, this footage was actually taken... Jeez, I think I recorded this in June this year? No, the PvP's from June. This stuff, I don't know, from a long time ago. This is a Dredge Fractal at level 38. I've done 48s with this many times, I'm just fine with it. And trying to show it off how ridiculously reliable it actually is. Obviously you still need some skill, and you need to be able to dodge and stuff. And I'm actually using the wrong heal at this point as well. To be honest, I should be using Shelter, but the heal that I'm using, Signet of Renewal, oh jeez, can't even remember the name of it, that's terrible. I'm the worst guardian in the world. The Signet's okay, and you see that it helps out, and heals me for a lot, but Shelter's better for this sort of situation when there's a lot of little attacks coming. This is a pull that went slightly wrong, and this is a pug I should say, by the way. I don't know any of these people. We're trying to coordinate just through visual stuff, so we're not on any sort of TeamSpeak or anything like that. You see, I take a ton of flak. The invulnerability from my elite saves me, dodges save me a lot, the blocks would save me. I'm using the shield of the Avenger to block a ton of the projectiles. We've got other projectile reflections and blocking skills, like I've got the wall up, which I'm going to probably use. We've got the feedback from the Mesmer, all this sort of stuff. I've also got my scepter on, because we were pulling these dredge to line of sight them, and I've got that defensive stuff on there as well. You'll notice I only ever use the heal when it's absolutely safe to do so, and that is important, because it will get you killed if you use it too late, because it's not an invulnerability skill. I use my virtues to heal myself. If everybody stacks up, that heals me for even more, and because I've got a lot of toughness and things like that, I get most of the aggro anyway. You'll also see that we're about to lose our warrior here, so a lot of our damage just disappeared because their inventory was full and they had to relog. I used the line of warding and the skill 5, the ring of warding on the hammer, during line of sight pulls to give us extra time on those pulls and the dredge and things like that. It knocks them down just as they get around the corner to actually hit us, and that gives us more time to just do some DPS. So this is a bit later on. I'm going to speed this footage up. It's a bit later on. It's the part where you have to just beat all the dredge out of the clown car section. We're 4-manning this at level 38, and you can just see that we can face tank the hell out of this. Yes, I take a lot of damage and hits of damage here and there, but essentially I'm alright, and this lasts for a long time because these guys take forever to kill. And that's pretty much that. You'll see that there's a lot of footage there. I've sped it all up and I'm just cutting it out, so that's just for convenience sake. I'm literally only trying to show how defensive and how sturdy this build is. You can play like an idiot with this build and still do well. Obviously if you play better, then the build's going to work better, and if you want to play better, and if you feel like you can swap some pieces of gear out for Berserker. I just like having the over 2000 toughness. It's just some arbitrary number that I wanted to pick out there. So this final bit of footage is some PvP. It's a little duel that we did in World v World between me and a mate called BitCloud. You can actually watch this entire duel on his channel on YouTube. I'll leave a link down in the description below, a little plug there for you, man. And yeah, I'm saying right now, I'm not good at PvP, and in particular in this match I was terrible. I could not dodge Churning Earth for the life of me, but my goal was just see how long I could survive, and if I'd played a little bit better I would have been able to survive even longer. You'll see that I do barely any damage, and that's not the point of this build, as I've said. So I'll close this video out by just letting Bit commentate for you for a minute or so.
The might stacks. And he blocked it. The hammer looks so cool when it does its moves. And stability. Oh my gosh! See how low he got? Oh, I messed it up so bad. Oh well, I got like 13 stacks on it.
And I will see you guys in the next one. Cheerio, thanks for watching.